Hello. Hey, Phantom. No, no. So, we're going to be having a longer stream today. I don't need to tell you guys why. 24 hours? Nope. Um, but here's what I'm going to ask you now. Do we do a dog, a post-apocalyptic scene, a post-apocalyptic city, post-apocalyptic house, post-apocalyptic settlement, or like a dead robot thing? What sounds the most interesting? The home? Oh, the options are very different. Yeah, it's the post-apocalyptic pack. House. Okay. So here we are. By the way, who is here for the creation of our story that we started making up? I know Chroma got really into it, and Visa and Nublet. We actually started just making up a story, and like, I'm really into it too. Like, I wanna like write it. So we did like some fantasy art, right? And it was a wizard, an archer, and a knight fighting three cyclopses. And we came. What? Oh, okay. We came up with this story basis, right? That there was at one point a long-lasting bloody war between Cyclops tribes and humanity. Right? But a peace treaty was enacted. And fast forward in the timeline, and Cyclopses and humans coexist in some parts. You know, in like small towns, you might find one or two Cyclops living in a house among humans. Some humans might go out of their way to live with Cyclops tribes, traders back and forth, that kind of thing. When it comes to the big cities, Cyclopses still aren't allowed in without proof of reason and identity, right? They still get checked. You know, papers, please. But they were starting to be allowed. Oh. The Cyclopses were starting to be allowed in all facets of human life, like education as well. And And so brings us to two Cyclops brothers. The larger, or should I say, more normal sized large Cyclops older brother, named by Chroma as Glorp Rufflesmith. Okay. Now, Cyclopses live with humans, but they still do have generally less intelligent, shall we say, than humans. You know, they were living tribally, so like, you know, they're not like studied, and they didn't have written language, you know, but their brains are big enough and developed enough that they can learn, right? So Glorp Rufflesmith was a bit of a dullard, but his brother, whom Chroma might have to remind me of because I forget his name, but the brother Rufflesmith was actually hyper intelligent. Like, even by human standards, he was smarter than most humans. But the issue was, he was undersized for a Cyclops. He was kind of small. And so, in Cyclopean society, strength is kind of considered, you know, it helps shape your like stature within the Cyclops community. And so being short meant you weren't strong, you couldn't lift heavy things, you weren't going to be a good fighter, etc. And so he was kind of shunned and not listened to by his Cyclops like neighbors, right? Like, basically in his community, he wasn't really listened to because he was short and small, and even though he was like hyper intelligent, he also didn't get listened to by his fellow Cyclopses. And his brother didn't really understand most of what he said because it was beyond his intelligence, but he loved his brother, and so they were a team. Anytime the intelligent Cyclops got picked on for being small, his brother would always step in and, you know, bonk the bullies on the head, kind of thing. But because of this, they developed a kind of relationship where Glorp was like the front man, and his intelligent brother kind of worked in the shadows. And so his brother really also, like, after they saw the city one time, and he was like fascinated with all like the academia there and stuff, and he really wanted to go to like university, right? But none of the Cyclops would let him because he was small. They just like flat out refused. So he kind of just derived this plan that he would essentially write a thesis and just send it to the university anyway. But the professor who read his thesis and was deciding to approve him or not is not only a powerful sorcerer, but also a bit of a bigot. And he doesn't want Cyclopses mingling with other humans. He thinks they, they're savages, And so he rejected the intelligent brother based on a prejudicial view. And so that gave the intelligent brother the idea to kind of like, what if Glorp applied or started to like, what if I was able to get my work out into the world, but because no one will listen to me because I am a small Cyclops, what if basically Glorp, I do it under Glorp's name, and Glorp kind of takes the credit, but I can prove myself. And I'm trying to remember this all correctly. At one point, we decided that the two brothers got exiled from the village. I think. And so the whole thing was like he was going to prove himself through his brother that, like, not only am I like the most intelligent Cyclops, but I am also like deserving of being recognized and stuff. And so like when he got his brother up to like fame of being like this intelligent Cyclops among human and Cyclops worlds, he would be like, actually, I wrote the thesis and my brother was just helping me, like, because none of you would pay attention to me. That was his idea, right? But because he was going to tell the world that he was rejected by the sorcerer, because the sorcerer was prejudiced, the sorcerer decided to pay or trick some people into hunting the brothers down to basically, cover up for his because he would get fired if he turned down a Cyclops, because it could have been a potentially peace ending thing if the Cyclopses found out that like that happened, and so he got a ranger who lived in the wooded village areas and said like the Cyclopses are planning to start chopping down your forests to increase the size of their settlement. And so thus he got the archer on his side by tricking him into believing that, and he got a holy knight on his side by saying that the Cyclops brothers had blasphemed the deity of the human world, and the Holy Knight was like, well, that's punishable. That's a punishable crime, so I need to bring them in too. And so that's how he gets those two people to help him cover up for his prejudice before it gets known to the public. And the one who was exiled, I think, was a man named was a Cyclops. Excuse me, was exiled from the village for being born with the mutation. This is another character, okay? His name, when he was exiled as a kid, because he was born a Cyclops with 2 eyes. So in body, shape, and everything, he was 100% Cyclops. He just happened to be born with 2 eyes instead of the 1. And as a result, as a child, he was exiled from the village. Because they're like, you're broken, basically. Um, and he was exiled as a kid, and so he was kind of like just hiding out in the woods, didn't trust people, didn't trust Cyclopses, kind of hid away, learned how to survive in the forests himself. Until he started stealing chickens from a local village. And this local village happened to be the same place where a retired war hero had took up residence. This retired war hero was named Jericho. And he was an older man now, retired from his service to the kingdom. And he kind of got given a small house, small little humble house, and was brought food and looked after by the villagers for his service. In exchange, he would occasionally deal with problems that the village would face. Bandits looking for protection money, bandits trying to raid, etc. The occasional wolf pack that's getting a bit too close to the village that he would go out and deal with them. Hey, Ghost Wolf. Speaking of wolf pack, and he would he'd basically just help out, kind of like do those sorts of jobs as a thank you and as an exchange for them looking after him. 9:30 a.m. Damn. You up? Is that early for you? So Jericho gets called up by these villagers, and they say something in the woods keeps stealing my chickens. And he's like, okay. And they're like, I don't know what it was. It looked like a boy, but it was shaped weird. Right? And this was obviously the exiled kid, Small Pete. The kid's name was Small Pete. He was given this name after Jericho went into the woods, tracked him down, and found that he was just a mutated Cyclops with 2 eyes. And he was like, well, I'm not going to kill him. He's just a starving Cyclops kid. So he took him in and sort of started raising him. And he called him Small Pete because he had a friend in the army named Pete, and so he just named him after his friend Pete, and because he was a kid, he called him Small Pete. And he kind of raised him the only way that he really knew how, because he didn't have any kids of his own or anything like that. He was never married. So he raised him by teaching him how to fight and how to protect himself and the village. And so as he got older, like, Small Pete became Tall Pete, and was often helping his adopted dad on these kind of like, errands that the villagers would ask them to go on, But once he was old enough, Tall Pete wanted to basically prove that he deserved to be welcomed back into his original Cyclops family. And so he fashioned himself a helmet that would cover up his head, and so he could approach them and be like, I want to live with you guys. My name is Tall Pete. And they were like, that's funny, we exiled someone named Small Pete. And he was like, well, I don't know who Small Pete is. I'm Tall Pete. Right? And so they were like, okay, come in. And so he managed to rejoin and started and became, you know, a part of the community, and was kind of went a warrior. Even though they thought he fought weird, but he just fought weird because he was trained by a human, not like trained by other Cyclops. And so he moved quite quickly, and you know, he moved more nimbly like a human, but they were impressed and they let him stay. But he never took his helmet off in public, else they would realize he had two eyes, and they would realize he was Small Pete. And he'd probably get kicked out again. So that's... And then what connects him to the two brothers, the Rufflesmith brothers, is he saw the Rufflesmiths' plan to go out and expose the corruption of the university and prove to humans that Cyclopses can be intelligent, just as, if not in some cases, more intelligent than humans. He saw it as an opportunity to prove himself to his tribe, which just happened to be the same tribe as the brothers. And so he went along with them as kind of a protection. He was like, I'll protect you guys. I'll come along with you guys and make sure you can complete your quest. And in his mind, if I do this, then I'll be heralded as a hero, and then I can finally reveal my true identity. And they'll be like, oh, it was you this whole time. We completely misjudged you. That's how it would go in his head. Lastly, Jericho, his backstory is not as light-hearted and whimsical as the others. His is a bit tragic. He was a soldier in the Royal Army. He was a Royal Knight, well decorated. Or excuse me, at the time he was just kind of like a foot soldier, right? He took part during the Cyclopean Wars. He took part in a massacre of Cyclops men, women, and children by essentially just they went to investigate some information. They saw that it was a village of just Cyclopses kind of minding their own business. But the leader at the time, the general of this sort of small army that went to investigate, he was a bit of a psychopath. And he was like, he gave the order basically to kill everyone and burn the village down. And they started attacking, and Jericho and his friend Pete, they were like, this isn't right. And Jericho was a little shy to say anything, he was like, "Don't say anything. Like, we'll just look busy." You know, and eventually, his friend Pete, just the Psycho Strip Club, his friend Pete basically went up to the general, who was on horseback at the time, and said, "We need to stop. What you're doing is wrong. You're killing children. You're killing innocent men and women cyclopses." And the general was just like, you know, that they're all, you know, they're animals. They're not worth keeping alive. Blah blah blah. And Pete was like, "No, I refuse," and he threw his sword down onto the ground and started to leave. And as he was leaving, the general thrust his sword into Pete's back, killing him. And basically, everyone was kind of like shocked and like, "Oh my god, he just killed a fellow soldier." And even the general was just a bit like, "Oh, I've put myself in it now." And the general looked at Jericho and was like, "You're not going to tell anyone about what happened here. And if you don't have the stomach to do what must be done and kill all these cyclopses and burn their village, then you can head back to the kingdom and tell them that you know, the threat has been eliminated and we have saved the realm from an attack." Right? Basically, go back and tell them lies. Jericho, being shy and still kind of distraught over just witnessing his best friend being killed, was kind of dumbfounded. And then the general was like, "I'll even promote you to a royal guard and get you accommodation. And whether it be self-preservation or a lapse in judgment and greed, we don't know, but Jericho took the promotion, went back to went back to the kingdom and did exactly what the general said, lied about what was there and what happened, never told anyone about what happened to Pete. You know, acceptable casualty of war, right? And although it was kind of weird that basically no one else, there wasn't really a large amount of deaths on the human side because it was just a small Cyclops village. Pete's death wasn't ever really investigated as to like how he died. No one ever really asked, well, how did he die? What happened? It was just, oh, he died in the fight. And so he got the promotion to be, you know, a royal guard, and he got the medals. And so that's how he became a war hero, and that's why he's treated kindly and was given shelter at the village. But he lives a life of regret. And so that's when he saw Small Pete, took him in, and figured he could somehow atone for the mistakes of his past. And so that's how he raised and he raised Small Pete into Tall Pete. And then all their stories kind of combine. Did everyone follow along with that? Or how many of you did I lose along the way? But we come up with all of that just by doodling, doing this coloring game. And so we want to build on the lore of the Rufflesmith brothers, Tall Pete and Jericho. We're going to continue building on it as and when it comes up. As established lore. As for Cyclops strip club, I tell you what, Jabler, if you can come up with a reason that any number of the party of characters I've mentioned end up at a strip club, we can put it into the story. I'm impressed you remembered the whole story. I don't remember the brother's name. It was Glorp, and the smart one was... I don't remember. Steve. Yeah, Steve. Stephen Glorp Rufflesmith. See, you remember too. Also, hey, Visa. I was just updating people on what we talked about last time. And how we can you know, evolve it. But we'll do this and then we'll get right into Fallout. Because we gotta finish the Brotherhood of Steel ending. And then move on to Nuka World. Although I might try and just see how easy the 100% happiness is, because I'm sure there's guides on like how to kind of trigger it. And I saw one that's at Red Rocket where it's something about like placing a ton of boxes, then placing a bell, and then ringing the bell, and it triggers happiness or something like that. It was like a weird, like, kind of, I don't know if it was a glitch or whatever, but if it gets the happiness achievement, then hey ho. Did I get all the facts of it right though? I did. Damn. I do love how stuff like that can just happen sometimes as well. You're just kind of rambling with people and you end up making up this like really cool little story. Like I low key want to like write that story. I just you know if I knew how to write. I've only ever done real short stories that have hook and a twist, and then that's it. I've never been able to write anything lengthy. I'll bet the Mutant Ninja Turtles started out in a very similar fashion. Probably something like that. Just like, dude, what if there was like these turtles that lived in the sewers and they were ninjas and they ate pizza? Why they eat pizza though? I know because they're from New York. Oh yeah, that'd be funny. Boom, franchise. Boom, franchise. Oh, I also started putting defenses up around Sanctuary because whilst I was cleaning up the Wasteland workshop quest where with the animal cages, I kept getting attacked by mutants. Super mutants. And so I started putting like walls up and stuff, and so like Sanctuary is kind of starting to actually turn into a settlement. And in terms of I did the Liberty Primed quest because we had done that before on stream and I had to reload to do this ending. I haven't done Blind Betrayal yet, which is the one where you have to decide what to do with Dance. And I'm debating whether or not we should kill him. Because we're going to be loyal Brotherhood. We're going to be loyal Brotherhood soldiers. A soldier. And I think I muted myself. After the stuff that went down with the Institute and realizing that, like, the kid he thought was his son was a synth, and then finding out Dance is a synth, I want that from a narrative perspective for the character to be a turning point where he kills Dance and he's like, whatever, I don't care anymore, and goes all in on the Brotherhood. Calling your settlement doesn't really help. But it looks cool. Hey, Nublet. Yeah, so I thought, like, from a narrative point, like, it could be a turning point for Nate Hockenheimer to be like, I did all this only for to find out that my son was just treating me like an experiment, and the kid I thought was my son was a synth. Like, I hate this world that I'm in now. This is crazy. And he was like, you know what? I'm gonna go back a bit like Jericho. He's like, I'm gonna just go and Nate, in my mind, would go to what he was comfortable with, which would be just going back to the military, right? And the closest thing he can do to go back and join the military would be to really just go all in with the Brotherhood of Steel. And so I think killing Dance would be a turning point for the character. Where he just didn't care anymore and killed Dance, not because Dance was a synth, but because Dance represented all the lies he had been told since he'd woken up. I don't know where this one is. There it is. And then with the Nuka World DLC, in my headcanon, he goes there to investigate. But then as he does whatever quests there are there, I don't know. I just know that you can team up with raiders and stuff. My headcanon is that, and obviously it would change once I start playing, but is that he's like, screw the Brotherhood as well. These are my people now. Like this is what I'm gonna do. And I think Nooblet, was it? You said that like you can raid and like Preston will get mad at you. And so I think joining with raiders and then raiding settlements in the Commonwealth would be Nate's idea of revenge on the world and the people that stole his wife and son and lied to him. And I know it's just Fallout, but you know, I love creating headcanon for things. I love creating meaning for stuff and stories and stuff like that. And so my headcanon is that, yeah. Just like the first, was the first Fallout protagonist, he was the lone wanderer? No. Sole survivor, right? Or that was Fallout 3. Vault Dweller. He was just the Vault Dweller in 1, I think. He was just called, the protagonist was called the Vault Dweller in Fallout 1. Like there's a whole they explain his post story stuff in Fallout 2, because you're part of a village that is ancestors to the legendary Vault Dweller in 2. Your ancestors to the protagonist of 1. And I would have to remind myself about like the endings for New Vegas and Fallout 3 to really decide what I think the characters' endings would be for them. And the show might very well explain New Vegas though in season 2. 3 is the Lone Wanderer. New Vegas is the Courier. Courier 6. 4 is the Sole Survivor. Gotcha. Thank you. So like, New Vegas might explain the canon ending. So I'm not gonna hold a strong opinion on New Vegas until it gets basically told to us. But yeah, it might change. But so far, my headcanon for Nate is that he goes on to join raiders and take revenge on the Commonwealth And, you know, fast forward, and he's basically become this, like, almost like a Great Khan, right? Like, he's like a raider war overlord, and he's turned the entire Commonwealth into just this massive raider hub. And, like, no one wants to go there anymore because it's all, like, you'll get enslaved or killed, and the Commonwealth, you know, the Brotherhood there got destroyed, and so they haven't been back. Because they were just like, it's a lost cause. I don't know. I would say I imagine, based on the way the game kind of like pushes you in certain directions, if I was to choose a headcanon ending for the game, it would probably be the Minutemen ending. Because those are like the first people you meet. They shelter you. They're living in your old neighborhood. Yeah. So it would be like the Minutemen ending. And then he goes off to Nuka World. Pridwin's in the show and didn't get shot out of the sky. Is it the timeline? What about the timeline though? How does it fit into the timeline? Because Fallout 4 is 210 years into the. It's 210 years. Well, it's 22. Fallout 4 is 2287, right? 2287. Show is 9 or 10 years after Fallout. Okay. So yeah, I would say Minutemen. Wait, if the Pridwin. Wait, did we see Maxon in the show? We didn't, did we? Was he mentioned? I'd have to rewatch it. I don't remember. East Coast Elders or something like that. They're probably careful not to like mention stuff too specific, so it leaves itself open enough. But yeah, I can see the Minutemen ending being the canon ending, or at least head canon ending, should I say? And then yeah, he just kind of like he can't stick around Sanctuary and just live after everything that he's been through. And so he, you know, hears the Nuka World announcement on the radio and thinks, huh, I might check that out for just another adventure. And then goes there and yeah, he ends up kind of vibing with the Raiders and realizes he can satisfy some form of revenge on the world that damned him. Boom. There we go. I keep muting myself when I adjust my chair because my shoulder hits my mic. Oh, that's not good. All right. Do we do another one or do we go on to Fallout? I think we're good for now, right?